Good evening and a warm welcome to all the parents and guests present here for this very special session of Mitra for Life's Thursday Tea Time Chats. Before we start our discussion for today, we would like to present a short video about Mitra for Life and our activities.
Mitra for Life is a non-profit organization working to create social change for children and youngsters with autism and special needs. We are a real-world social network bringing together the community. We create opportunities for youth to build friendships and have new fun experiences. Parent support and awareness programs are also our focus. We curate fun weekend outings in a group and new experiences like a trek and day trips. The Youth Club is a fun online socials for youngsters. #Unlabel, our flagship project, showcases the amazing talents of youngsters with autism and special needs. We bring together like-minded parents to build a strong parent network, creating bonding with fun celebrations and social events. All our programs now run online, engaging and empowering youngsters to connect and socialize. We have impacted over 950 families from 15 cities across India, and over 200 youth volunteers have been a part of the change. There is no limit to what we can accomplish together. Mitra for Life, a friend for life. To support us, go to mitraforlife.org.
Thank you. So we strongly believe in the community coming together and would love for you to be a part of our community. So do look us up on mitraforlife.org for more details. It is now my pleasure to introduce this evening's special guest, Dr. Nandita Shah, the recipient of the prestigious Nari Shakti Puraskar in 2016 and the founder, director, and trustee of Sharan, which she founded in 2005 with the aim of helping people to heal themselves and the planet by connecting to animals and nature. Sharan is now a vibrant and growing social enterprise whose vision is to build a culture of health and has already positively impacted more than 100,000 lives in India and overseas. Dr. Shah is a registered medical doctor specialized in homeopathy. The journey to Sharan began when Dr. Shah turned vegan in 1985 because of ethical issues. In 1999, Dr. Shah moved to Auroville near Pondicherry. She also did an internship at Farm Sanctuary in New York to learn more about farm animals and their relation to us. This was the inspiration to start Sharan. Dr. Shah, supported by a team of doctors, nutritionists, health coaches, facilitators, and volunteers who share her passion for helping people attain their highest health potential through lifestyle and without medicines. She is the author of the immensely successful book, Reversing Diabetes in 21 Days, which has helped hundreds of readers reverse their diabetes just by following the simple lifestyle changes suggested in it. She also conducts 21-day residential health retreats, one-day seminars, cooking classes, and training programs for doctors, nutritionists, and facilitators. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Nandita Shah. I would also like to now introduce Dr. Madhuri Vaidyeshwar, the founder of Mitra for Life, who will be in conversation with Dr. Shah this evening. Dr. Madhuri Vaidyeshwar is a homeopath specialized in pediatric health and neurodevelopment. She is the medical director of Vaidya Child Health in Bengaluru. Her work focusing on autism and developmental disorders in children has won her accolades. She is a consultant at several special schools and early intervention centers in Bangalore, working with parents and therapists to focus on the health and development of the child. She founded Mitra for Life in 2018, a private non-profit organization which works for the empowerment of autism and special needs community in Bengaluru. I now hand it over to the two homeopaths to talk about diet, our children's health, and more. Over to you, Dr. Madhuri.
Thank you, Samyukta. Welcome, Dr. Nandita. We are so happy to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here with you. This is a very important topic and very dear to my heart.
Yes, in fact, we have all been followers of your work, and you're doing such amazing work, reaching out. You've reached out to so many families across the globe with this concept of veganism and, of course, the healthy diets. So, thank you for joining us today. And before we jump, into the topic, I'd like to just, set some context for the parents. So, in our work with children over the years, what we have seen is that making small dietary changes, it may seem very large to you if dairy is very close to your heart, if it's something that you're always using, and at the same time, these changes can create significant changes in the health level of the child, both in development and in a lot of ways. So we are here with Dr. Nandita today to hear more about this. So Dr. Nandita, let me ask you to start with saying, so this is a very scary concept for a lot of, let me say us, it used to be before I explored it, to say cutting out dairy. So when we say cutting out dairy, can you clarify? I mean, I know a lot of people are very new to this concept. So what is it? Are we looking at just cow's milk? Are we looking at milk products? So if you can just tell us about that.
Before we get into the scary part, let's just think like this, that we should always put the right fuel in our body if we want to stay healthy. And everyone knows that every child loves their mother's milk. They don't want to leave their mother's milk. But when you first give them cow's milk, why don't they appreciate it? And the main reason is because they're not calves. None of our children are calves. Now, in nature, we all know this, that every animal produces milk for their young. So if I were to ask children, dog's milk is for, they'll say puppies, or cat's milk is for kittens. And then they get it immediately. If I say cow's milk is for, it's calves, right? In nature, no animal drinks another animal's milk. That means goats don't drink pig's milk, monkeys don't drink elephant's milk. And so when we consume milk, we are consuming something that's not suitable to our species. And when we do this, we can get sick. Just like if you were to give a cow meat, it's not good for the cow. Or if you were to give a lion grass, it's not good for the lion. So we have to really think what is the right food for us. So when we say dairy, now coming back to your question, dairy means milk, cheese, butter, cream, paneer, ice cream, curds, buttermilk, ghee, or anything made from milk. That's what dairy is. It actually also includes biscuits. What are biscuits? Maida, sugar, oil, and milk, right? So we need to be aware, and because of our Indian culture, India is the largest producer of dairy in the world. So because of our Indian culture, we find dairy in everything. If you buy potato chips, you'll find that some of the flavored potato chips have milk powder in it. And the main reason that they have milk powder in it is because dairy is addictive. Everyone who makes a packaged product adds everything that's addictive into it so that nobody can put that package down. So these are sugar, fat or oil, milk powder. It could be also monosodium glutamate. That's another thing that is added to these things. So these are things that are added to every package just and salt. These are things that are added to every packaged food almost in order to make it addictive. And so we have to recognize that the reason we can't leave dairy, or it's so scary to leave dairy, is because ultimately it's addictive. Milk contains casomorphins that addict the baby to the mother. And so when we consume cow's milk, we get addicted to it. And when we consume it in forms that even the calf wouldn't consume, as in cheese or concentrated forms, paneer, cheese, etc. We are having even more uh, casomorphins, and so it's even more addictive. Cheese is very addictive, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I'd like to start with saying, one of the very obvious things when we're talking about children's health is the effect that milk or any of the dairy products can have on the gut itself. So we know that gut health is one of the key things for long-term health now. It can be preventive, maintaining good gut health can be preventing of a lot of illnesses as a child grows. And of course, when we talk about children either with autism or with a lot of developmental issues, again, gut issues are very common. So, what have you seen, in your experience that cutting down dairy what effect can it have on the gut?
So one thing that's very important for good gut health, and as you said rightly, good gut health is important for good mental health. It's important for complete body health. But what is very important for good gut health is good amount of fiber. And when we have the right amount of fiber and the right kind of fiber, then different bacterial flora grow in the right proportions. This gut health can be destroyed by various things. Antibiotics. Funnily enough, probiotics also, because probiotics give a whole set of one or a few different microbial flora, but it's not in the right proportion as it should be, right? But what destroys gut health is lack of fiber. And there's so many things which lack fiber. All the refined foods that we're eating, oil or sugar or white flour or white rice, or even peeling vegetables and fruits that we should not peel. But the truth is that all animal products contain no fiber at all. So the very first thing that we should take out is animal products. And since dairy is an animal product, this is why it's harmful to gut health. On top of that, we all know that so many people are lactose intolerant. Why are people lactose intolerant? Because babies produce rennet, something that helps to curdle the milk and then digest the milk. But as we grow, we don't produce this anymore, at least not in the right quantities. And so we are losing fiber, and so we're losing proper gut health. If we can change this, and so what Sharan does is helps build high quality immunity so that not only can we fight, gut problems, but all kinds of problems just by right nutrition.
One of the things, as you mentioned, the gut health connected to mental health. So I think that brings me directly to my next, observation, let me say, where I've seen over the years, even in my practice, that, when children have either hyperactivity or they have behavioral issues, right? While, of course, cutting down on sugars, is a very obvious solution, and it can bring down these aspects. Cutting down on dairy definitely does have an effect on this long term. So can you comment on this, please?
Absolutely. And I would like to say that children are not the only people who have behavioral issues, right? We all do. And, I'm treating more adults than children. And so I see people who have anxiety, panic attacks, or even depression on medications and all of that. And, when we are stressed, we produce adrenaline. All our emotions are brought to our notice through hormones and chemicals in our brain, like dopamine, serotonin, adrenaline, and so on, right? So when we are stressed, we produce adrenaline. When animals are stressed, they produce adrenaline. And we have to recognize that every mother wants to be with her baby. And if we artificially impregnate cows so that they'll become pregnant, so that when their baby is born, they'll produce milk. And then we tie up the baby, or if it's a male, send it for slaughter and take, that calf leather comes from the calves. So if we, take away the baby from the mother is extremely stressed. And I live in a village where you can see everywhere that, they keep the baby alive as long as possible. Even after 9 months, the baby hasn't grown at all because it's hardly fed. They take the baby to start the flow of milk and then tie it up immediately and take all the milk from the cow. So we are consuming the product of an extremely stressed animal. And I must say that it's not just milk, but all animal products come from extremely stressed animals, because no animal wants to go for slaughter or anything, right? So, but milk is a product of an extremely stressed animal. And therefore, when we consume it, we are consuming that adrenaline. And it causes in us many emotions, violence. I remember that, like, I grew up on milk. I grew up as a vegetarian, and my parents thought that milk is the best food at that time. And so even at the time when milk was not easily available in India, they procured milk and made sure that we had milk. I used to have 3 glasses of milk per day, plus curds and buttermilk. And at that time, cheese was not so prevalent, but other dairy products. And I remember my entire childhood and especially teenagehood, I used to wake up with stress. This went away completely when I stopped consuming dairy. Now, the one thing I want to say is that hormones don't disappear immediately. So all these hormones that we've acquired in our body through animal products will stay in our body, and the fatter we are, the more they stay, because they're stuck in the fat and they keep having an effect. But if you're off animal products for a period of time, you'll see that your mind gets calmer and calmer, and it's really amazing. When we recognize this, we recognize that no child needs to be mentally disturbed, no human being needs to be mentally disturbed. And a lot of our mental disturbances we are causing to ourselves by eating the wrong fruits, especially animal products.
Yeah, in fact, it's very interesting, what you're talking about. Even in lactating mothers, we're always saying, don't take antibiotics, don't take foods which may affect the child. And yet, the first thing we switch the child to is cow's milk, and we don't think about a lot of this. Uh, I
And the
think
reason we don't think about it is because we are not eating and living according to instinct anymore. We're eating and living according to culture, society, advertisements. And so I have a very quick way to think about what should we eat and what we should not eat. That means look at all the advertisements. And if it's advertised, don't eat that, because nobody's going to spend good money telling you what's already in your instincts. And that's why we never see advertisements for carrots and cucumbers or apples and oranges, but we see advertisements for milk everywhere. The dairy industry would not be alive without those advertisements.
yes, that is so true. This brings me to what I think um, is the resistance in a lot of us. I mean, I have faced this a few years ago. I used to say, but we've been doing it for generations. This is part of our cultural eating. I mean, not the cheese, but the milk, and of course, ghee is such a culturally tied in food, and we attribute it to the gods. We use it to pray, and all of this. And also, the other common thing, which I have also said for many years, is I'm South Indian, I can't give up curd, you know.
Right.
So, how does one, I mean, I know it's a resistance that's very inbuilt. Even when it comes to your awareness that this is not necessarily good, this is a lot to deal with. So what would your advice be to people?
Okay, so I can say a lot on this. One of the resistances is in Krishna's, how come Krishna was having milk or curds or whatever, right? And we have to recognize that Krishna had hundreds, maybe thousands of cows. So if someone has 100 or 1,000 cows, why would he be stealing dairy products? And the only reason he was stealing dairy products is that there's nothing left in the cow if the calf has fed. So today we are depriving the calf of milk so that we can consume it. Now, I would first, I want to help people change their mindset, because when I try to stop milk, I know that milk is something that just fills you up, right? Give a glass of milk to kids in the morning. You don't even have to make breakfast because they're full till lunch, right? So milk fills you up. Imagine if we are hungry without milk, what must be the calf going through? And the minute we can recognize that we wouldn't want our milk to go to someone else, we want it for our baby, we just cannot consume cow's milk, right? So why did Krishna have to steal? Because there was hardly any left. For example, I have a friend, she used to live in Roha. She was rescuing cows and she had about 50 cows. She was part of Hare Krishna movement and she thought that milk was the ultimate good food, but she was aware enough never to consume milk except from her own cows. With 50 cows, she would at the very maximum get 2 liters. And that's just because she would not take the milk from a cow until the calf had fed, right? So there's no milk left. So we have to recognize that when we consume milk, we are actually stealing. The other thing is, like we think that you need ghee. Ayurveda suggests ghee or milk, or what about that? And if you go into the Ayurvedic text, Ayurveda considers milk as a white poison. Milk is not a food. Milk is not supposed to be consumed, and milk is used as a medicine only for certain people. But now if you go to Ayurveds, they have been conditioned just the way we have been conditioned by their parents, by society, by advertisements, and they feel that milk is the perfect food, and that's what we're told. Now, Dr. Madhuri, you're a doctor and I'm a doctor, and we've been through all the medical texts. And we know very well that in no medical textbook is it written that milk is a good food for humans. This is something that is taught by our culture, right?
Yes, that's very true. In fact, a lot of the Ayurvedic texts usually suggest that if there is any mucus in the body, a cough or any such situation, or of course a respiratory condition or a digestive issue, then they do stop dairy products. That is the advice that they do also give.
Absolutely. We know that milk is mucus forming, but milk causes so many other problems. Like today, we have a whole host of hormonal problems. If you think about it, many of the problems that people are facing these days, such as hypothyroid, PCOD, infertility. India was a country of overfertility, infertility. Then prostate enlargement, breast cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer, premature puberty. Today, girls are achieving puberty at the age 9 and 10. The correct age is 14 to 16, right? Acne, so many, diabetes is a hormonal problem too. So we are suffering from so many hormonal problems. And the reason we are is because all our hormones are orchestrated by the pituitary gland, a gland at the back of our brain. And if one hormone goes out of balance, others too go out of balance. And we are imbalancing our whole hormonal system, because milk contains a whole host of hormones. What are they? Oxytocin and prolactin and estrogen and progesterone and growth hormone, because milk is a fluid to make a baby grow. Now, today we have so much obesity, right? Why? Like if you look at if I look at my childhood photographs and now I look at the school photographs of children today, there's a huge difference in the weight. And that's just because we're consuming more dairy than ever. Growth hormones, which make us grow taller, but also make us grow fatter and also cause so many problems. So milk causes these problems. Milk, as we all know, wherever we may be living in India, we know that cows, there's not enough food to feed human beings. How are we going to feed cows? So cows are left to graze in garbage disposal, right? And we dispose our garbage in plastic bags. So when they try to eat that organic waste, they're also eating batteries, razor blades, as well as plastic bags. Now, there's a fabulous documentary worth watching for anyone, and that's called The Plastic Cow, which shows that cows today all over India, their rumen contains plastic bags, and up to 85 kilos of plastic can be found in a live cow. And this translates as PCBs in the milk. So we are having milk with plastic in it. On top of it, to control the infections of cows, they're constantly given antibiotics. And as you said, Dr. Madhuri, that we are told not to have antibiotics. But if we give cows antibiotics in every feed, it's mixed with the feed. If we give cows antibiotics with every feed, then it's coming back to us through the milk. So there are many reasons. I haven't mentioned them all, but there are many reasons why we shouldn't have milk. It's extremely harmful and causes many diseases, including chronic kidney disease, which is another big problem, because milk, everything that goes in our body is broken down by the liver and excreted by the kidneys. And all this plastic, the urea that is put in milk to prevent it from coagulating when it's transferred in hot environments, this causes kidney disease. And various other things, because all those antibiotics and chemicals all have to go out through the kidneys. This causes kidney disease. There are other things which I'm not mentioning now because it's just too confusing. But also, one very important point that I would like to mention is that milk contains growth hormones. And it is one of the stimulants of cancer cells. Cancer is a growth. So the very first thing that we should do in any case of cancer is stop dairy. And often this is not done because doctors say have more protein. So in this age where we are into fitness and having more protein, we are more likely to get all these diseases, including cancer and chronic kidney disease.
Yeah, in fact, it was also very interesting when you mentioned the early puberty in girls, because this is something we're seeing now, and especially in children with developmental issues, autism, etc. They are much more sensitive to what goes in, right? Any food and the milk, etc. And they are also more susceptible to the effects of hormonal change. So this can bring about behaviors, and also we are seeing the aggressions which would start typically around teenage, the aggressive behaviors. We are seeing that earlier now in younger children. So I would like to ask you, I know you spoke about mental health, but we have a lot of parents in the audience who have teenagers, who have young people with autism or developmental issues. And one of the most common situations faced with everybody is aggressive behaviors, mood swings, And we always attribute this to hormonal change. We say it's because of puberty, etc. Uh, I would like to ask you, have you seen that withdrawal of milk in this age group can benefit, the mental, emotional health?
Well, when you spoke about this, one thing that came to my mind was a fabulous book by Victoria Butenko. And Victoria Butenko at that time was um, telling people about raw food, which is obviously better than cooked food because all the animals on the planet eat their food raw and we are eating food cooked. But she said that, when she became a raw foodist because her young son had type 1 diabetes, her daughter had asthma, her husband had had some 18 operations and was being asked to have the 19th one, and she was extremely overweight and had palpitations and other things. So she decided to go completely raw, actually, in order to save her son who had type 1 diabetes. But the whole family went raw. And one of the reasons the whole family went raw, and this is relevant even to us today, because you can't ask your child not to have something when you are having it in front of their face, right? So the whole family changed their diet. And she said that the biggest change was in the state of mind. But at one point, when the children were growing up, they invited other raw fooders from all over America to come and visit them and stay with them. At that time, there were very few people who were consuming raw, especially children in the US. And so they had gathered a group of maybe 10 or 15 children. And she said that she was scared to have 10 or 15 American teenagers come to their house. But she said that when they came, it was so amazing because they were the calmest, most intelligent children that she had ever met. And I can vouch for this, that if you bring up your child without any dairy, then something else is going in their mouth instead of dairy, and that's fruits and vegetables with more phytonutrients, more minerals, more vitamins, more brain, more intelligence, higher marks in studies. So Victoria Butenko said that all her children had double promotions. And then they just left school because school was too low for them and they were far ahead studying for themselves. I've seen this right here in Oroville. There's a vegan community called Sadhana Forest, and they never sent their children to school. They were doing homeschooling, or rather very little schooling. They thought that their children would learn to read and write on their own without school. And I can say now, I didn't know what it would bring when I was seeing it, but I can say now that their children are some of the most intelligent that I know. Really amazing, studying by themselves. One of them is a bookworm, though she has never been taught to read. And she just loves to study. And she's just amazing,
Yeah, in fact, that's very interesting, what you brought up, because I do think I still find that even now in villages, for example, uh, milk and ghee and all of this are to be sold. So very few families actually consume it for themselves.
True.
And when you come back and look at the statistics of who are the children who are performing well in academics, you will find all these toppers from small towns, small villages, right? So it's very interesting. I mean, these are links we never think about.
And not only that, I was talking to my cousin in Pune where the COVID pandemic was going on real strong. And I said, "Oh, you let your maid come home." And she said, "I've noticed that they never get COVID. It's we who are getting COVID." And that's kind of true. I've been noticing it too. There's much less in the village, it's more common in the affluent.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Immunity is always stronger in the poorest.
Yeah, and it's really it brings to the spotlight, I think, one of the things we don't really think about. When it comes to medicine, when it comes to certain choices we make for our children, the school they're going to, the what they're going to read or watch, we are very careful. You know, we really do our research. We put a great deal of thought into it, and yet something as simple as something that goes in every day for years on end, we have hardly paid attention because it's a packet. I've seen it come into my house as when I was a child. So now, you know, it's so easy to just bring it in and not think about what it's going to do,
True.
you know.
And no, I just lost my thought. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think you know, we have thought about sugars. We have started thinking about carbohydrates. We know that packaged food, if you're buying that, you know, you read the label. Of course, there are a lot of ways they can con us, but then milk or cheese and butter, etc., is a part of, and like you said, it's also very affluent lifestyles. The in cities now, I think a lot of children consume way more cheese than, I mean, of course, probably even 20 years ago, there was barely any cheese usage
Yes,
that was going on.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So what I would like to ask you is, now, let's say I want to make the switch, and I have again been through this. Yeah, I would like to mention here that, you know, I have done this with my own children, and one of whom had some severe eczema. And, you know, when I was doing this whole trial, I first said, okay, I don't really understand it, but maybe A2 milk, because I want to try and see if there's a lot of chemical that's going in, and let's try and switch. That actually made it worse. And when we went off milk, it made a huge difference. It made a huge
Yeah, I mean, we
difference.
have to recognize that A1 milk is for A1 calves and A2 milk is for A2 calves, and we are neither,
Yeah.
you know. But yes, once you stop all the milk, it makes such a huge difference.
Yeah. So with the allergies, whether it is skin, it is dermatitis, eczema, it could be respiratory conditions, and especially in a place like Bangalore, we have a very high statistic of childhood asthmas, wheezing, respiratory allergies, and definitely over the years, I've observed that all this responds very well to a non-dairy diet,
Absolutely.
cutting down on the milk.
Cutting down, eating, putting the right fuel in your body actually solves diseases faster than medicines, which is what we do. And in order to make it really easy, we we teach people how to make all the alternatives. You know, so we can have our cheese, but it just won't be dairy cheese. It'll taste like cheese. And because so many people are getting sick, today you can even buy these ready-made non-dairy cheeses, non-dairy ghee, non-dairy milks, non-dairy yogurt. Epigamia, which is such a big company, has come out with non-dairy yogurt. In fact, you can even buy non-animal meats, right? Because actually we are herbivores. Even though we believe we're omnivores, if we were to eat according to our instinct, if we were to go to a farm or an orchard and see fruits and vegetables, we feel like picking them. But if we see a chicken walk by or a goat or a cow, our mouths don't water. It's not our food, but we're eating it, right? So we are constantly putting the wrong fuel in our body. Now, we don't need to be deprived. The only thing that's scary about getting off dairy is deprivation. Oh my God, how will I do without my curd rice, right? It's only deprivation. And so once we recognize that there's no deprivation, it's easy to get off dairy. But once you get off dairy, you will not be addicted to it anymore, which means you have the choice to have the alternatives or to leave them, all according to your taste, you know. And they're really easy to make. We have cooking classes every day.
Yes, in fact, again, I would like to say that when I have seen some of your talks, and when you really take us through the entire logic and of not using dairy, I think it becomes so ingrained. It's almost like cutting an umbilical cord between that connection we have with milk, and it's very interesting. And I have been through this myself, and you just don't find it's like being a vegetarian and looking at meat, and you just don't have a reaction at all. So it
Right,
is possible to get there.
right.
So yes, so at this point, I would like to, there's a question in the chat box which I would like to bring in here.
Yes.
So it says, how practical is it to get our children on vegan diets? And I was also talking to a parent earlier today who said, especially with our children with autism, as they grow up, we want them to be very independent and we want them to sort of make their choices. So how practical is it? And actually, I was told it's not going to work for me. That's what they said. So
And here's what I think. I think disease is not practical. I mean, I would not be able to spend my time with any disease. And I do understand that it's not completely the same with autism because we're not expecting it to reverse. However, we've seen huge strides in autistic cases, so much so that nobody even knows that they're autistic because they can behave so normally just by changing their diet. And here in Oroville, there's someone called Meeta who treats autism with sound therapy. And she's also sent so many patients to me just because she saw the difference in them by changing their diet as well. So do we really, I mean, we have to recognize that it's because of our conditioning that the child is sick because we've given them the wrong food, and we can change a lot of it just by changing the food. We can change a huge amount. It's unbelievable what can be changed.
yes, yes. In fact, I think for somebody who's very resistant to make a change, it's not a, a lifetime you have to think about right now. Just think about it as a couple of months or 3 months. And I know you've also talked about this. You've said, try it for 30 days and see
Right.
what it does to your health. And then when you have evidence of change, you see improvement. And with a
Then
lot
you
of the
can
families,
decide.
yes, and with a lot of the families that I work with, the change is also very apparent in the children.
Right.
And then it's easier to get convinced to take it on as a lifestyle. So I'd like to ask again a dilemma that parents do face. So let's say they do get to this point where they're thinking about switching out of dairy. Now you have two kinds of children typically. One who loves milk, who loves the curd, and the other who, as it is, hates it and is just being, force fed, right?
Right.
So how do we help the children deal with this change?
Right. So I would say we don't start with the children. Because if we start with ourselves, the children will fall into place. For example, we usually start our day with a green smoothie. Now, I remember one of my patients, I suggested the green smoothie. She started having green smoothies every morning. And within my second appointment, which is after 15 days, she told me, I have to thank you because my children are asking for it. My young daughter came up to me and said, what is that you're having? Give it to me. And now the children are hooked onto green smoothies. It was so easy for them to switch. And that's the thing, people don't recognize how delicious our food is. Once you get into the hang of how to make it, because every change is difficult, right? Like if you change from Indian food, which you're used to Chinese food, there's going to be a learning curve. So changing from the kind of food we're eating to the kind of food we could eat for health, there's going to be a learning curve. But it's delicious once you start eating it. And so I do have to say that though I don't have whole lot of kids with autism, I do have a whole lot of children patients with type 1 diabetes and so on and so forth. And I can tell you, they are really not missing the milk products at all. And if the slightly older kids, like the teenagers, it's hard to tell them what to do, right? But if you tell the young teenagers how we get milk, if we let them know that another baby is being deprived because we're having the milk, they leave it like this because they are sensitive to that. You know, they are already experiencing that vulnerability. So they know that they don't want to be a part of it. You know?
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, I think it would be very interesting to work with children in schools and take this concept to them, because they catch on very intuitively when you talk to them about animal. I know you've spoken in one of your talks that, when you see a pup, a young dog, it's not different from a calf. So how is it okay to deprive a calf? And a lot of children are very sensitive to information like this.
I remember I used to go to schools to give this information, and the children used to thank me to no end at the end of the talk. But the effect was very little. And the reason for that is that they go back to their parents, and if their parents don't know, then they're back into the whole trap, you know.
Yeah.
So it's really important to speak to parents first. Parents have to understand, parents have to change. If parents change and see the change in their diabetes, hypertension, obesity, hypothyroidism, other diseases, why would they give ill health to their kids, right?
Yes. Yes. In fact, hypothyroidism is something that's, again, very common, becoming very common in our teenagers, young adults. And I think this is something we must explore for them. And yes, so how do we make up for the nutritive value is a question that has come up
Right.
from the
And
parents.
I'm seeing some questions here. So can I take them one by one?
Yes,
Some of them.
sure, sure.
So one of them is like, what about the vitamin B12 if you cut out all the animal products, right? And here I'd like to say that B12 deficiency is across the board. Non-vegetarian, or if you're even a vegetarian, you must get your B12 levels checked. And if you do, you will find that the chances are very high that they are low, and therefore B12 deficiency is not found in vegans. It's found across the board. B12 is only made by bacteria and in our super hygienic life. And on top of that, because of mobile phones and alcohol consumption, we all have vitamin B12 deficiency. So we better all get it checked and take supplements no matter what our diet is. The other question is it practical to go dairy free? And I think we answered that to some extent, right?
Yes.
How do children obtain their calcium if they're not consuming dairy? I love this question because that's answered everywhere. And that's just because, asked everywhere, and that's just because we all consider that we need milk for dairy. And that's what the advertisements have told us. But hey, where do the cows get the calcium from? Right? So calcium is a mineral. It grows in the ground. I mean, it's found in the ground. Anything that grows in the ground has calcium in it. And the foods with the maximum calcium are nuts and seeds and greens. Now, did you know that sesame seeds has 10 times the amount of calcium as milk? So we can get all our calcium needs just the way cows or any other animal on this planet gets it. In fact, I would like to bring to your notice that people who have osteoporosis, does anyone here know anyone with osteoporosis? If you do, please type in the chat box, yes. Do you know anyone in the world with osteoporosis? Okay. So yes, some of you are writing yes. And all those people with osteoporosis, weren't they consuming dairy all their life? And honestly, the answer is yes. So if they were consuming dairy, how did they get osteoporosis? right? These are the questions that we should be asking. And the truth is that our body needs calcium, but if we consume, and our body is alkaline, and if we consume anything that is acidic, then it has to be neutralized, and calcium comes out of the bones to neutralize it. Now, what are the acidic foods? Tea, coffee, cola, sugar, vinegar, salt, alcohol, and protein. Protein breaks down in our body into amino acids. And so it's acid yielding in our body. And so we are depleting our body of calcium through the various foods we're consuming, including milk. Did you know that osteoporosis is more common in the countries with the highest per capita consumption of dairy? Dairy actually causes calcium deficiency. But we're told something totally the opposite, right? Okay, I'm just going to the questions from up to down, if that's good. And please, Dr. Madhuri, you can ask anything in between as well, okay?
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
So how to convince children to switch from milk products to natural foods? Especially my daughter loves curd, rice, and cheese. Try our recipes for curd, rice, and cheese. I don't think you'll be disappointed. But if you are, try epigamia for curd rice. And try the ready-made cheeses that you can buy in the market. But honestly, I prefer the authentic cheeses that we make compared to the ready-made cheeses even. Okay. How about giving milk from grass-fed cows? Well, we're still not grass-fed cows, are we? So we really shouldn't give this to our kids, because, I mean, definitely grass-fed cows are better than garbage-fed cows, no doubt. But how do you know that the cow is really grass-fed, right? And even if you give grass-fed cow milk, it still contains growth hormones, estrogen, progesterone, prolactin, oxytocin, and all the other hormones, which means that premature puberty, menstrual pains disappear. Hirsutism, or hair growth in women, this disappears when you stop consuming wrong foods like dairy. So there's so many things that can get better. I've been a non-vegetarian turned vegan since the past 3.5 years. Veganism is the only way of life. Thank you, Sapna Gaurav, for that. I agree, and that's why I really suggest try it. You'll only know if you try it, right? Okay. How about taking milk from home cow, which was fed with self-grown green grass? And here's where I can tell you that most of the people who talk about home cows are the ones who don't have home cows. Because I've been giving seminars and teaching this for years, and I know that people have got up in my seminars and sent me mails after that saying that they stopped having home cows and home cow milk because they knew that what I was telling them was true. My son has an allergy issue since when he was 1.5 months and admitted for the same. And by that time, there was no cow milk inside him. What could be the reason? The cow milk inside the mother, right? Whatever we are consuming goes to the baby. In fact, have you noticed that children have colic? Many children, young children have colic. But if you stop all the dairy in the mother, there's no colic in the baby. So there are so many things that we can observe if we make those changes, which brings to our notice that this is something wrong, right? In fact, milk may be more harmful than many of the things that we do consider harmful and which we know are harmful, right? My daughter of 6 years old turned vegan. Post this, she was continuously having a dry cough. Is this a side effect of suddenly stopping dairy? And the answer is Yes, it is. And I'm going to explain. If someone is smoking, the first effect on their body is cough, the first time they smoke. But after a period of time, the body sort of adjusts to this smoking and the cough goes away. But the day they stop smoking, the smoker's cough comes back. Why? Because the lungs say, oh, wow, now no more smoke is coming inside. I can start cleaning. And the lungs try to cleanse by coughing out everything. And then often, if you start smoking again, this stops. Our body is always trying to adjust to the situation, but it's not always good for the body. In the same way, if someone has had cough or someone has accumulated mucus in the lungs because of dairy, if you stop dairy, the lungs say, wow, I want to throw it all out. And they do it. So initially, and it's only in the initial phase, that the phlegm will increase, the weight will decrease, many changes will take place, but afterwards, everything comes to order. Now, I do want to mention one more thing here. Milk causes tuberculosis. If that cough is persistent, and remember your daughter was consuming milk for 6 years before she stopped, then we must check in case there's any such problem, right? Why does milk cause tuberculosis? Because the cows are kept in close confinement and spread it to each other. And the tubercle bacilli is not destroyed by, or all of the tubercle bacilli is not destroyed by pasteurization. My son is 12 years old, height is 4.8 and weight is 28. How can he gain weight? So thank you for these beautiful questions. I really want to thank you. And I know that this could be a question for many mothers. Remember one thing, if your son is energetic, don't worry about the weight. The weight will look after itself. The body knows how to heal. But we don't want to gain weight in terms of fat, do we? Fat is very difficult to lose later on. We want to gain weight in terms of muscle. How can your son gain weight? By working out and eating the right foods. Not by eating fat. Milk is full of fat. All animal products are full of fat. Boiled milk fat on top, boiled chicken fat on top, boiled fish fat on top. However, and all this fat is without fiber, so it doesn't go out of the body easily. But if we consume the right foods, we will be able to assimilate it well, and over a period of time, we will always be our best weight. Now, I have to tell you that I've been almost vegan for more than 45 years, and I've been 100% vegan for more than 20 years. And I don't have any health issues, and I don't have any weight problems, and I don't have any of the problems. And I do take vitamin B12 and D as required. How can the Sharan lifestyle affect your children with type 1 and type 2, probably diabetes, right? And that's a whole other topic. But here's what I would recommend. You can go to our YouTube channel and start viewing the videos on reversing diabetes. My son, 7-year-old kid, has quit dairy. Congratulations to all of you people here. Since the past 2 years, and his only 2 incisors have fallen down, whereas peers many. My query is, when will the teeth fall and when will he have permanent teeth? Please don't worry. All children are different as when it comes to teeth. And we don't have to rush to get their teeth to fall out. The second set of teeth is a bonus. After that, if those fall out, we don't have a third set. So the later the better, right? As long as they come. Please don't worry about it. Can veganism lead to thin, skinny bodies? veganism can lead to nice proportionate bodies. And here's where you can see them. We have a whole group of facilitators, and all of them are not allowed to be our facilitators unless they're following our lifestyle. And so you can see the effect of veganism on them. Okay. And yes, some kids are skinny by constitution and nothing needs to be done. If your child has enough energy, nothing needs to be done. So how do we take care of nutritional values for children without milk? I would ask the other question. How do you take care of nutritional values for children with milk? Because you're giving them the food that's not meant for them, right? The nutritional values are totally taken care of when we don't have milk. Someone, Lucia has written, my niece has rheumatoid arthritis. And rheumatoid arthritis, like type 1 diabetes, is an autoimmune disease and can be dramatically helped through a whole plant-based lifestyle. Okay. Do you want to ask any questions or should I go on with these questions, Dr. Madhuri?
No, I just wanted to make an observation and also share that usually when families stop milk for the child, you'll find their appetite goes up.
Yes.
They're eating much better quantities, and they're frequently hungry, right? So just an observation I wanted to share. Yes, please go ahead.
And most of us eat more than required anyway, right?
Yes.
So we aren't going to get fatter by eating more than we require because, body can't assimilate so much. We are going to get to the best health by eating high quality foods. Many people aren't eating organic, but we humans are the only species that sprays our food with poison so that other animals don't eat it. And other animals are smart enough and we consume it. Now, just to give you, I didn't talk about so many things about milk, and I'm sure Dr. Madhuri will cover it later with many of you. But I just want to say that when cows eat food, they are not eating washed food, without pesticide food, organic food, they're eating from garbage. And so all those chemicals and pesticides come back to us. The ICMR, the Indian Council of Medical Research, has done a study already, I think about 10 years back, a study on 50,000 samples of milk all over India. And they found that milk in India contains 570 times. I just want to repeat that figure. 570 times the permissible levels of pesticides. Why? Because when we consume, if a cow consumes 12 kilos of grain to produce 1 liter of milk, then we have a concentrated form of pesticides. Milk is extremely harmful. Okay, I'm going to go through other questions. One of them is those who walk, they don't get osteoporosis. I'm not sure.
Osteoporosis, I think.
Osteoporosis,
Yeah.
okay. Yes, walking definitely helps osteoporosis. True. Thank you, Dr. Nandita. Should kids in the age group of 5 to 12 be given vitamin B12 supplements? All kids must be tested for B12 and they should be given supplements only if they are low. Now, young children often don't have low vitamin B12, and you know why? Vitamin B12 is made by bacteria, and children put their hands on the floor and then put it in their mouth. And so their B12 levels are taken care of, but ours aren't. So if you're super hygienic, then do check into your kids' B12 levels. My son is short and lean for his age with ADHD medication. His appetite has gone down further. Yes, one of the very first things I help people do is cut down medications because they all have side effects. So does it make good for me to take out milk from his diet? Absolutely. The minute you take out milk from his diet, there's more place for nutrients. And then always get the highest quality you can. And also the ADHD will be better, much better without milk, right? How can we consume sesame seeds to get enough calcium, which is required daily? The best way to consume sesame seeds is to crush them, either roasted or unroasted. So the minute you crush them, you're getting all the nutrients and all the calcium from them. If you don't crush them and you don't chew them, then they may come out in the stools whole. So always crush them. You can crush them in the form of tahini and put it as a salad dressing. You can crush them and add them to laddus. We make date nut seed laddus. There's so many recipes with sesame on our website. And chutneys. Sesame in chutneys is delicious as well. What are the other sources of calcium and protein? So here's the thing. We do know a lot of people with diabetes and ADHD and people with learning disabilities and so on and so forth. But tell me, how many of you, and please type in the chat box, how many of you truly know somebody with protein deficiency? Please type yes if you know somebody. Okay, so I'm not even getting a single yes, right? And that's because protein deficiency is not heard of unless there's starvation. Every single cell contains protein. Nobody even knows the symptoms of protein deficiency. This protein cow is only to sell. We do not need to worry about protein ever, just like all the animals don't need to worry about protein. Where do horses get their protein? Where do elephants get their protein? Where do cows get their protein? We can get it from the same place, plants. Okay. Okay, I need to keep a track on the time and I'm still happy to answer questions. And Dr. Madhuri, please don't hesitate to interrupt me with yours.
Sure. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Apart from milk, we eat other protein-rich foods. If all of them are converted into amino acids, can we continue eating other protein sources? That's a good question. And in nature, the food that we are supposed to eat comes with fiber. The protein comes with fiber so that we can never overeat and so that we will never get over acid. Like, for example, you all must have noticed that one day when you overate, what was the thing you overate? Maybe paneer, maybe milk sweets, maybe cheese, maybe milkshake, maybe ice cream. But is there anyone who overate dal or carrots or peas? It doesn't happen because these have fiber, right? So we need to have foods in their whole form, plant-based foods in their whole form with the fiber. The fiber also contains the nutrients and the fiber can help clean out our body. Okay, Swapna is saying, thank you, Nandita. I have attended many of your cooking classes and they are superb. Thank you for that. And last week was the menopause. Yeah, true. I mean, we have so many great things to help everyone. Thank you, Swapna. Rajeshwari is writing, I'm 16 right now. Rajeshwari, thank you for joining us at the age of 16. And I'm still contemplating whether to turn dairy-free and vegan or no. But I'm not yet sure if plant sources can suffice all the proteins and nutrients that are required. Well, they certainly do it for all the animals on the planet, the cows, the elephants, and the horses, right? So here's what you could do, Rajeshwari. Try it. Just try it. It's simple. And learn more about it before you jump into it. My grandson is 14 months old, and while having mother's milk, he was having continuous cold and cough problem. What is the reason? The reason is the mother, what the mother is consuming, right? All the immunity that the mother has goes to the baby. And that's why young babies are rarely sick. But if we give them wrong food, they get unhealthy. And you know, your grandson at 14 months may have been having his mother's milk, but usually people start giving cow's milk on top of mother's milk, as if mother's milk is not enough, as if nature would have made a mistake and we are smarter. That's why babies get sick. As you told that you also grow on milk, so what you are today may be because of that. I've been through a lot of diseases and now I'm healthier at the age of 62 than I've ever been in my entire life. I never get fever, I never get cold, and I'm not scared of COVID. Okay, what supplements should be given to an 8-year-old vegan kid? Supplements should always be checked and supplemented. Vitamin B12 and D is the only one if they're eating healthy. And please do look at how much to be given on our website. Under Try Vegan, vitamins B12 and D have a page to themselves. On stopping dairy, is it correct to understand the existing behavioral issues can aggravate? And how long will it be to see some changes? You know, anything can aggravate when we suddenly stop. That doesn't mean sudden stopping is not good. Sudden stopping is the best. But when we suddenly stop, when the body is undergoing changes, things can aggravate. And this is temporary and depends on the age. That means it depends on how many years we've been doing the wrong thing. How much cleansing needs to take place. For young children, though, I haven't seen long periods of cleansing. And so usually young children will be fine in just a few months. Okay, vitamin B12 supplements are on our website. And can I give olive oil as an alternative to ghee? And here's the thing, we should give whatever nature expected us to give to our children. True, nature doesn't expect us to give ghee, but nature also doesn't expect us to give olive oil because it's an extract, right? So the best are whole foods. And more on that, you will learn if you join the group that Dr. Madhuri is going to propose very soon. What about rice? I love these questions. So what about rice? Good question. If you go to farms and you see green fields of wheat and rice growing, does your mouth water? Please type in the chat box. Does your mouth water if you see green fields of wheat and rice? This is a yes and no. Everyone can answer. So Lucia said yes, of course, and others are saying no. So there's some yes and there's some no, but think about it. Our mouth doesn't water if we see the green fields. We like to see green fields. Nature is lovely to be in, but our mouth doesn't water. And the reason our mouth doesn't water is because it's not our food and we can't eat it raw. We, like all other animals, were originally meant to eat our food raw. So rice and wheat should not be front and center in our diet. And truly, we don't ask you to stop it completely, but do make fruits and vegetables front and center. Can you suggest some natural probiotics for gut issues? Okay, so I really like this question. And remember one thing, that gut issues are there because of a reason. Now, we can't solve that reason by putting in something else. Just as you can't solve headaches by taking medicines, or you can't stop ADHD by taking medicines, You cannot stop any disease by medicines. Medicines can only remove symptoms temporarily. Isn't that true? Right? So the only thing that can cure is removing the cause of any disease. So if we have some issue with our gut, we should understand what is the cause of that gut issue and remove the cause. This is how we work to reverse diseases. So we don't need yogurts for probiotics. Why not? Because if you make curds, if you ever made curds, you know that all you need is a spoon of curd in the milk, warm milk, and the next day you have a whole bowl of curds. So if we have just one right bacteria in our gut, we'll have all the right bacteria we need. We don't need to add right bacteria to our gut every day to get more right bacteria. Not at all. We need to make sure that our gut is free to allow the different families of microbes to flourish as they need to flourish so that we are healthy mind, body, and spirit. Okay. My daughter is 22 years old and diabetic, and she's overweight. What diet plan should I make? And here's where we can help Shubha. We have several ways to reverse diabetes. I've written a book that Dr. Madhuri talked about. We have a 21-day online program, but the very best for you would be to take a consultation so that someone is there to support you throughout and actually come to the conclusion of no more diabetes. What can we replace ghee with? Okay, the only dairy I use is butter or ghee. So temporarily you can replace butter or ghee with oil. But honestly, you can make a better form of ghee by taking desiccated coconut and putting it in the grinder and grinding it, it becomes just like a ghee. But what it contains is fiber and no hormones. So it's really healthier. I'm trying to take out milk from our diet, but can we have paneer sometimes? Look, nobody is perfect, right? So don't do nothing because you can't do everything. You do as much as you can. Now, suppose one day after taking out all that dairy, you're dying to eat paneer. Then take that paneer and enjoy it completely. Savor it and then see how your body feels. And once you recognize how your body feels, memorize it. The next time the paneer comes in front of you, bring up the memory and say, do I want to feel like that again? And the answer may be yes, I'm dying to eat the paneer. Then you have it again. But don't forget to, because our body always speaks back to us. It never fails. And especially if you've cleaned up, your body is more, you are able to listen to your body better if you're willing, right? So if you have that paneer, enjoy it, but don't miss the message. Keep bringing up the message, the paneer will go away. The other way to get rid of the paneer, if you're at all sensitive and compassionate, and I do believe that we all are, then think about the calf who hasn't had the milk. You won't feel like having the paneer anymore. And make the alternative. Now, how to have a really good alternative for paneer? Get some tofu, press it so all the water comes out, put it in cashew cream so it gets marinated. It tastes no different from paneer and it's cruelty-free as well. And of course, it helps you get rid of diseases. Okay, and Aditri, thank you for letting me know your name. Sorry, I made the mistake because you were using Rajeshwari's Zoom link. Okay. Sushma has asked, for infants, what is the alternative to milk if breast milk is insufficient? But we should always ask the question, why is the breast milk insufficient? What's wrong with the mother, right? That's a whole other topic that we can't go into right now. I'm a lactating mother of 4-month-old baby, and I want to start with vegan lifestyle as soon as possible. What should I do so that milk supply is not impacted? So trust me, you don't need milk to supply milk, just as cows don't need milk to supply milk. And just as we don't need to consume shit to produce shit. I mean, producing milk is a natural feature of a lactating mother. And your milk will be more nutritious and will not cause colic if you stop consuming dairy. This is a misconception or a myth that we need to have more milk when we're pregnant or lactating. Not at all true. Okay. Hi, I'm sorry I joined late. I'm not sure if this was addressed. I fed for my son nearly 4 years and then have weaned him. So now I'm wondering about the calcium. And he's not really wanting to drink milk. And of course, the calcium issue has been addressed. And you can learn more about it by going to our website, going to Try Vegan and under FAQ section. But because this is such an important question, I am going to answer it again. Look, there's no such thing as calcium, a deficiency of calcium intake. Nobody has this. Nobody, right? The deficiency is in vitamin D, which is required to assimilate the calcium. And almost every urban dweller has this. Please immediately check the vitamin D levels and supplement if necessary. Forcing something to kids is not at all good. So can we stop dairy step by step, like instead of giving milk twice, reduce it to 1 time a day? Ruchi, thank you for that question. And forcing kids to do something is never good. We should first do it ourselves and then apply it to our kids. Once you have applied it, the kids won't be the problem, I assure you, because you will be making things that are so much more delicious than milk. Hello, what about the other sources of milk, like almond or soya, and what are the effects on mind and body? And truly, almond and soya milk is nothing but almonds crushed in water. And so the effect of almond milk is the same as almonds, right? Because when we consume almonds, it gets crushed in our body and water is added to it. So almond milk is like eating almonds, and soy milk is like eating soy, cooking soybeans and making something similar to dal out of it, right? Blending the soybeans. And so it has no major effect on mind or body. It's just good if you like it and not necessary. Like, let me explain that again. We do not need an alternative to milk. We can have an alternative to milk. We could have soy milk, we could have almond milk. We do not need it. We can have it only if we wish for it. Like for the taste, it's not a necessity, okay? Why? Because we're no longer infants. And milk is a food only for infants. I've been a vegan since 8 years now, and Sharan was the first vegan platform I stumbled upon. I wish our doctors, especially our pediatricians, could be educated about the adverse effects of dairy. Well, then what will they do? They won't have patience, right? They are not going to move in that direction anytime soon, at least most of them. Now, I have to say there are some exceptions, and I heard Dr. Madhuri's story where she had a pediatrician who was referring all the cases to her. But this is not the norm. And so we should all, it's our duty if we have children to understand everything about children. And a very good book is Dr. Spock's book, right? Dr. Spock has written a book. Do you remember the name? On parenting. What is it?
Mm, yeah,
Okay.
I can tell
You
you.
can look it up and tell me as soon as you can. I've forgotten the name. But Dr. Spock has written a book on child health, which is the Bible of child health. And this was written when my parents were like before I was born. So my parents had also read the book. Dr. Spock has written in that book that milk is harmful to children. But we often don't read what we don't want to absorb.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to my parents too. Okay.
It's called the Common Sense Book on baby and child care.
Yeah, it's a book on baby and childcare, right? So, I mean, this is something that has been known for a long time, but most of us know the knowledge that we have been conditioned to know through our culture, society, and advertisements. The fruits we get at stores are stored for a long period and loaded with pesticides, and organic is not a sustainable option. So Shamina, this is your question, and can you type in the chat box where do you live? Is Shamina still with us? Because in urban India now, organic is a very sustainable option. And even though organic costs more, Coimbatore. So Coimbatore, I mean the smaller cities, and Coimbatore is not very small, have less organic, but Coimbatore does have some organic. I have patients in Coimbatore, and it is possible to get organic. And remember, dry goods are easily available everywhere now in India, and if not on Amazon, fresh goods are often available, but not always available. Sustainable in terms of money, honestly, I'm seeing the cases of cancer, and chemicals cause cancer. And I think disease is not sustainable, but health is always more sustainable than disease in terms of money too. Okay. So I thank you for all those questions. I loved answering them, and we have come to the end of our time limit also. So Madhuri, over to you.
Yeah, that was very informative. Thank you to everyone for their questions, and thank you for so patiently taking them. I know we covered a wide range of topics. I had a few notes um, while you were talking. So one is about autoimmune diseases in children that we are seeing increasing every day. So definitely worth giving a try. Uh, cutting down on dairy. And I also want to say, I know you also talked about this. Trying to. I mean, this should really be a part of our preventive healthcare for children, right?
True. And I do want to say that cutting out dairy is not the only thing. We only had an hour and a half to discuss. And there's a lot more. So I invite you, for those whose children have autoimmune diseases or those who have autoimmune diseases themselves, to go to our YouTube channel and watch the 1 hour talk on autoimmune diseases, because there's more to dairy as far as autoimmune diseases go.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the other point I had, while you were saying that when we change our habits, the kids change. Over the years, I have seen a lot of children with hyperactivity who, while we're just very simply talking about, the diets and things, the invariably, I've seen a lot of families, and especially South Indian families, say that, when I'm drinking my cup of coffee, the child wants some, and we give it to them every day. And I said, I would just put my pen down and say, I'm not going to prescribe. If you can't cut down on the coffee, because you're directly feeding the hyperactivity.
3 things in
Right.
coffee, sugar, and milk all give hyperactivity, right?
Yes. And invariably, the solution we would find, and there would be a lot of things the parents came up with. They would say, it's not me, it's my, in-laws, it's somebody at home who's giving the child coffee. We say, listen, you cut it down, or you try something else, and the child will start drinking that, right? So these things do work. It is not all about medication. I mean, not just any medication, even with the homeopathic medication, when we do the follow better diets, when we have better lifestyles, it's for the best of the child and for the child's development.
Right.
So,
And the resistance is usually on the part of the parents more than the children.
yes, absolutely. And of course, I think the biggest selling point at this point, especially, should be that the immunity of the child will pick up. You will find that the chronic issues are down, the colds and coughs and all of that will reduce. So, especially in the stage we are in right now, that should be a big selling point for all the parents. Yes, you
But
want.
more than that, the intelligence of the child will pick up. Also, both are equal, right? You can't do
Yes.
much when you're sick and vice versa, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I know this was a short session. It actually, this whole conversation of ours, which started a few weeks ago, when I was watching one of Dr. Nandita's talks on quitting dairy, and that's what we wanted to do today. And I said, this is too much as an introduction. It really hits you in the face, and it just makes you let go immediately. So, what we are very thrilled to say we are doing going forward is we have a Mitra and Sharan collaboration. So what we will do is we will have a WhatsApp group, and any of the parents who want to try this for your child, you can join there. We will have some curated content. We will meet once a week online and do this together. We do want to help you get there. See, it's a process. It's not going to happen in one day, because if you suddenly cut it down and you're still craving, or you're struggling with it, your child is going to struggle with it. And if you are convinced, it's so much easier to make this happen for your child. So we're thrilled to announce this. Thank you, Dr. Nandita. Thank you for agreeing to the collaboration, because this is something we feel very strongly about. We'd love to have a lot of the Mitra families, and of course we invite a lot of people from Sharan to also do this with their kids. We will also share feedback regularly from all the parents on the group. So we'll do this for about 8 weeks. So all of you stay motivated to try this. And like I know Dr. Nandita has said this in her talks, if you're very apprehensive about adapting it as a lifestyle right now, don't worry about that. Try it for 4 weeks. 4 weeks or 8 weeks for your child's health is really not a lot to ask. If you can get into that mindset, I'm sure we can do a lot with the children. Yeah, so we invite you all to be a part of that. We will announce on both the Mitra and the Sharan groups soon, in a day or two. And thank you, Dr. Nandita. It was so lovely hearing this from you. A lot of my thoughts were also reinforced, and I know a lot of the families have been talking to the questions they've had, have really been addressed. And I must tell everybody, the cooking classes that they have, and some of the recipes they have, will definitely not make you miss it, because the biggest block we have is the mind. It's not even the tongue, it's between there. It's the mind that craves what you've had for many years, and some of these recipes are brilliant. So again, thank you, Dr. Nandita, for spending so much time with us. This is a topic we've been wanting to address for a long time, and hopefully this is the beginning of change for a lot of families.
Thank you, Dr. Madhuri, and thank you to all the participants, and also thank you for all your kind comments.
Yeah, so yes, we'll wind up the session. Samyukta, over to you.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Dr. Madhuri. And I'd now like to thank Dr. Nandita Shah on behalf of the entire Mitra for Life family and all the parents that attended today, for giving us her valuable time and such an eye-opening session indeed about food, which we tend to take for granted. And this has indeed given us some food for thought, definitely. And I, for one, I am going to try out the recipes on your website and try to make that lifestyle change. So thank you so much. And so we look forward to seeing all the parents again next Thursday in our next Tea Time chat. Thank you and have a good evening.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Namaste. Have a lovely rest of the week.